New beginnings, late nights. Don't forget to brush Mr. Snuggles, Tom reminded Lily, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. She was already half asleep, clutching her stuffed rabbit. She mumbled, her eyes fluttering closed. He kissed her forehead. Love you, Bug. Be good for Mrs. Peterson. Lily was already drifting off. He lingered for a moment, watching her peaceful face, then quietly slipped out, the latch clicking softly behind him. The silence of the apartment felt heavier than usual tonight. He swallowed the lump in his throat and grabbed his backpack, the weight of his new reality settling on his shoulders. The Sterling Corp building loomed against the night sky, a monolith of steel and glass. Tom felt a shiver, not entirely from the cool air. He clutched the strap of his backpack, a mix of nerves and determination churning in his stomach. This was it. New beginnings, late nights. The security guard, a burly man with tired eyes, barely glanced at his ID before waving him through. The lobby was eerily silent, the gleaming marble floor reflecting the muted light from the recessed fixtures. Tom felt like an intruder in a forbidden palace. His supervisor, a woman named Maria with a no-nonsense attitude, gave him a quick rundown of his route. Floor 22 to start, then 18, then a break, then. Tom's mind began to swim with numbers and cleaning protocols. Any questions? Maria asked, her voice sharp. Tom hesitated, then shook his head. He didn't want to seem incompetent on his first night. No, ma'am. He started with the cubicles, the ghosts of daytime activity lingering in the air. The faint scent of stale coffee, the scattered papers, the ergonomic chairs standing sentinel. He emptied trash cans, dusted surfaces, and vacuumed the carpets, the rhythmic hum of the machine a lonely soundtrack. He worked steadily, trying to ignore the gnawing feeling of exhaustion and the persistent worry about Lily. Up on the 47th floor, Eleanor Sterling sat hunched over her desk, the glow of the computer screen illuminating her face. Spread before her were spreadsheets filled with numbers that swam before her eyes. The merger with Omnitech was proving to be more complex than anticipated, and the pressure was mounting. She rubbed her temples, feeling a headache throb behind her eyes. The silence of the office was deafening, broken only by the occasional hum of the ventilation system. She glanced at the framed photo on her desk, a younger version of herself, smiling brightly, arm in arm with her parents. A pang of longing shot through her. They would have known what to do. She pushed the thought away, forcing herself to focus on the task at hand. Sentimentality was a luxury she couldn't afford. She was the CEO of Sterling Corp and people were depending on her. Another hour passed. The numbers blurred. She leaned back in her chair, feeling the weight of the day crushing her. Maybe just a few minutes of rest. Down on the 18th floor, Tom was scrubbing stubborn coffee stains from the break room counter. He hummed a tuneless melody, trying to keep his spirits up. He imagined Lily tucked in her bed, safe and sound. He pictured the smile on her face when he brought home a new coloring book, a small reward for his hard work. He glanced at the clock on the wall. Only 3 more hours until he could go home. 3 more hours until he could see Lily again. He straightened his back, a surge of renewed energy coursing through him. He could do this. He had to do this. The lost bear and a glimmer of hope. The conference room reeked of stale coffee and desperation. Tom sighed, dragging the heavy vacuum cleaner across the plush carpet. Another all-nighter for the Sterling and Company bigwigs. He nudged a stray document with his foot, something about quarterly projections, a language he didn't speak. Then he saw it. Tucked under a chair leg, almost hidden in the shadows, was a teddy bear. Small, brown, and well-loved, with one button eye hanging precariously. It looked utterly lost and abandoned. He picked it up, a pang of sympathy hitting him. Someone was missing this. Lily would have been inconsolable. He ran a hand over the worn fur, wondering who to give it to. He found Ellie by the window, staring out at the pre-dawn city. Her silhouette was rigid, almost brittle. Usually, she was a whirlwind of sharp words and crisp pursuits, but now, she seemed deflated. He'd learned to steer clear of her moods, but something about the way her shoulders slumped made him pause. He hesitated, clutching the bear. This was probably a terrible idea. She'd probably fire him for disturbing her. But he couldn't just walk away. He cleared his throat. Miss Sterling. She didn't turn, just gave a curt, yes, Baker? He shuffled closer. I found this in the conference room. I thought maybe it belonged to someone you know. He extended the bear, feeling ridiculous. Silence. He half expected her to tell him to get back to work, to mind his own business. Slowly, she turned. Her face was paler than usual and her eyes, red-rimmed? He'd never seen her look anything less than perfectly composed. She looked at the bear, then back at him, a flicker of something unreadable in her gaze. "It's not mine." Her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. "I know," he said quickly, "but maybe someone in your family? A niece? A nephew?" He felt like he was babbling. She stared at the bear again, and this time he saw a faint tremor in her hand as she reached out and took it. Her fingers brushed his, cold as ice. "Thank you, Baker," she said quietly, turning back to the window. She didn't smile, but the harsh line of her jaw seemed to soften just a fraction. She held the bear loosely in her hand, staring out at the growing light. He didn't know why, but he felt a surge of something. Not quite hope, but maybe a glimmer of it. A tiny crack in the ice. "You're welcome, Miss Sterling," he said softly and retreated back to his vacuum cleaner, the scent of stale coffee suddenly less oppressive. He still didn't understand her, but he knew one thing. Beneath the sharp edges and the cold exterior, there was a sadness. And maybe, just maybe, a lost little girl who needed a teddy bear. Notes of encouragement. The fluorescent lights hummed, casting a sterile glow on Ellie's empty office. Tom, heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs, crept inside. He'd practiced the note a dozen times in his head, rewriting it until it felt right. Not creepy, not forward, just kind. He smoothed the small, square piece of paper, a pale yellow post-it he'd pilfered from the supply closet, and placed it carefully in the center of her pristine desk blotter. Underneath her pen. "Hope you have a good day. You've got this." A friend. He glanced around, a guilty flush warming his cheeks, then slipped out as silently as he'd come. The next morning, Tom hovered near Ellie's office, polishing the already spotless glass of the conference room doors. He told himself he was just making sure everything was perfect for her meeting, but his gaze kept drifting toward her door. Finally, he saw her arrive, shoulders squared, face a mask of composure. He watched unseen as she unlocked her door and stepped inside. Minutes ticked by, each one an eternity. He imagined her tossing the note in the trash, wrinkling her nose in disdain. Then, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Ellie was sitting at her desk, head bent, her expression unreadable. But then, a tiny upward curve tugged at the corner of her lips. A smile. Faint, almost imperceptible, but undeniably there. Tom felt a warmth spread through his chest, chasing away the morning chill. He continued the notes, each one a little braver than the last. Even the toughest days have moments of beauty. Look for them. Your strength is inspiring. Don't forget to breathe. He varied the locations, taped to her coffee mug, tucked inside a file folder, propped against her keyboard. He made sure they were always anonymous, signed only a friend. He didn't want to pressure her or scare her away. He just wanted to offer a small spark of light in what seemed like a very dark world. Ellie, meanwhile, found herself inexplicably looking forward to the mornings. Not the meetings, the deadlines, or the endless stream of decisions that plagued her waking hours. No, she anticipated the little yellow squares of paper that had begun to appear like tiny suns in her otherwise predictable office. She reread them, sometimes multiple times a day. She kept them all tucked away in a small, antique box she normally reserved for important documents. The anonymity was both frustrating and intriguing. Who was this secret admirer, this silent cheerleader? Was it some kind of elaborate prank? Some misguided attempt to curry favor? She dismissed those thoughts. The notes felt genuine. They spoke to a quiet understanding, a recognition of the burdens she carried. And strangely, they made her feel seen. Gifts for a friend. The fluorescent lights hummed, a familiar drone in the otherwise silent office. Ellie placed the small, paper-wrapped package on the edge of her desk, right where Tom usually left her meticulously arranged stack of files. She slipped back into her office, the cool glass a welcome barrier against the rising anxiety in her chest. This whole situation was a delicate dance. One wrong step and the carefully constructed facade of professional detachment could crumble. Later that evening, Tom found the package. His heart did a ridiculous little flutter. He carefully unwrapped the drawing, his breath catching in his throat. Lily's artwork always had that effect on him. The cookie was another surprise. Warm, chocolatey, and impossibly thoughtful. He smiled, a genuine, unforced smile that reached all the way to his eyes. He pocketed the drawing and nibbled on the cookie, savoring each bite. "Lilybug," he said, scooping her up in a hug when he got home. "Your art made someone really happy today." Lily beamed. "Really, Daddy?" "Who?" "A friend," Tom said, hedging. He knew he had to get Lily something to give back, a proper thank you. The next morning, they stood in the tiny corner shop near their apartment. aisles crammed with dusty trinkets and forgotten toys. Lily skipped ahead, her eyes wide with possibility. How about this, Daddy? She held up a plastic dinosaur, its paint chipped and faded. Tom gently steered her away. That's sweet, Lily, but maybe something a little prettier? Lily's face clouded. But dinosaurs are awesome. He knelt down, meeting her gaze. They are. But this is for someone who's been really kind. Someone who likes sparkly things, maybe. He remembered the subtle shimmer of Ellie's earrings, the way they caught the light. Lily pondered this, then her face lit up. She darted towards a display of keychains, returning with one shaped like a silver star, tiny glitter embedded within its resin. Perfect, Tom said, his heart swelling. He bought the keychain, tucking it into his pocket. It wasn't much, but it was from Lily. And that made it priceless. He hoped your friend would think so too. The weight of it in his pocket felt like a promise, a tangible symbol of the unexpected connection he was forging in the sterile landscape of Sterling Enterprises. Suspicion and jealousy. Bob squinted, the fluorescent lights of the office hallway reflecting harshly off his balding head. He'd been strategically positioned, as he liked to call it, near the water cooler for a good 15 minutes, ostensibly filling and refilling his oversized mug with lukewarm coffee. In reality, he was watching Tom. Tom, with his perpetually rumpled hair and kind smile, was always a thorn in Bob's side. Too cheerful, too willing, and, worst of all, too damn popular with the ladies in accounting. Bob had been working at Omnicorp for 15 years, diligently climbing the ladder of custodial management. He was a senior janitorial technician, thank you very much. Tom had waltzed in 6 months ago and acted like the place was Disneyland. Today, Tom's Disney act was particularly irritating. He kept glancing at his watch, then ducking into empty offices, reappearing moments later with a furtive look around. Bob's suspicion, already a low simmer, began to boil. What was that kid up to? Something on your mind, Bob? Brenda from HR startled him, her perfume a cloying wave of artificial flowers. Bob jumped, nearly spilling his coffee. Just observing best practices, he grumbled, waving a dismissive hand. Brenda raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow and moved on. Later that afternoon, Bob cornered Mr. Abernathy, the supervisor, feigning concern. Abernathy, I'm worried about Baker. His productivity seems diminished lately. Lots of unscheduled breaks. Not the kind of dedication we expect at Omnicorp. He made sure his voice dripped with sincerity. Abernathy, a man whose face always looked like he just swallowed a lemon, sighed. I'll keep an eye on it, Jenkins. But Baker's numbers are still good. Bob's jaw tightened. Numbers. Always about the numbers. He needed something concrete, something undeniable. Opportunity knocked during Tom's break. Bob, pretending to look for a misplaced mop, found Tom's cleaning cart unattended near the supply closet. His heart pounded. This was it. He rummaged through the cart, tossing aside bottles of disinfectant and stacks of paper towels. Nothing. Then, at the bottom, beneath a crumpled newspaper, he found it, a small, brightly colored drawing, obviously made by a child. It depicted a stick figure holding hands with a taller stick figure standing in front of a wobbly-looking house. Above it, scrawled in crayon, was the word, Daddy. Bob's initial surge of triumph deflated. It was innocent, pathetic, even. But wait, why was Tom hiding it? He pocketed the drawing. A new seed of suspicion planted. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. He would find something. He always did. A night without a note. Lily woke with a whimper. Not a dramatic, attention-seeking cry, but a small, choked sound that burrowed its way directly into Tom's sleeping consciousness. He was beside her in an instant, hand on her forehead. Hot, too hot. Daddy. Her voice was thick with sleep and something else. Something congested and miserable. Hey, sweet pea. What's wrong? My tummy hurts, she mumbled, burrowing deeper into the covers. He felt her tremble. Tom knew instantly he wouldn't be going anywhere tonight. The cleaning job, the pristine offices of Sterling Enterprises. All of it faded to insignificance against the small, feverish weight in his arms. He spent the next hour coaxing sips of water into her, wiping her clammy skin with a cool cloth, and singing softly off-key versions of her favorite cartoon theme songs. By the time a weak dawn painted the sky in shades of gray and lavender, Lily had drifted back to sleep, fitful but quiet. Tom, exhausted, sat vigil beside her bed, the crumpled cleaning schedule lying forgotten on the floor. Ellie arrived at Sterling Enterprises precisely at 7 a.m. The city was just beginning to stir, a muffled symphony of distant sirens and rumbling buses. The elevator hummed, carrying her upwards, the glass walls reflecting the nascent light. She stepped out onto her floor, the familiar scent of lemon polish and something faintly floral greeting her. He'd been using a new air freshener, she noted absently. She unlocked her office, the click echoing in the pre-dawn silence. Usually, the first thing she did was check her desk. There, invariably, would be a small, folded note tucked beneath her pen holder. A simple greeting, sometimes a cartoon doodle, always a brief observation about the night. The moon was really bright, or found a lost earring near your desk, put it in the top drawer. Small things, almost insignificant, but they had become a comforting ritual, a silent bridge connecting her night to his. But today, the desk was bare. A knot tightened in her chest. It was irrational, she knew. He was a janitor, not a personal assistant. He wasn't obligated to leave her notes. But the absence felt wrong. The silence was louder than it should have been. She checked her email, half expecting a message explaining his absence. Nothing. She told herself he was probably just running late. Maybe he'd overslept. Maybe something minor had come up. But as the minutes ticked by, and the office slowly filled with the murmur of arriving employees, the knot in her chest grew tighter. She found herself glancing at the door every few minutes. A subtle, almost imperceptible movement, but there nonetheless. The morning meeting blurred into a monotonous drone of reports and projections. She found herself struggling to concentrate, her mind replaying the image of her empty desk. The clean, sterile surface seemed to mock her. She hadn't realized how much she'd come to rely on those little notes. They were a small splash of humanity in her otherwise regimented world, a quiet reminder that someone, somewhere, was thinking of her. And now that small connection was gone, leaving a void she hadn't expected to feel so acutely. The discovery. The fluorescent lights hummed a lonely tune as Ellie walked through the deserted office. It was nearly midnight, the city outside a muted glow beyond the panoramic windows. She'd stayed late, wrestling with the impending quarterly reports, the numbers blurring into meaningless symbols under the weight of her fatigue. A faint citrus scent, cleaner than the usual antiseptic tang, drifted from down the hall. Curiosity, a rare and unwelcome guest, tugged her forward. Rounding the corner, she saw him. Tom. Pushing a cleaning cart, meticulously wiping down a desk, his brow furrowed in concentration. He was humming softly, a tuneless melody that somehow filled the sterile space with warmth. But it wasn't just him that caught her eye. Affixed to the side of his cart, held in place by a smattering of colorful star stickers, was a drawing. A crayon sun, radiating uneven rays, beamed down on a stick figure family. And beside the father, a small, painstakingly drawn girl with bright yellow pigtails. Lily's drawing. The one she'd given your friend at the park. The air seemed to thicken, pressing against her chest. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the quiet hum of the office. She hadn't realized how much she'd wanted to know, how deeply the mystery of Lily's friend had burrowed into her thoughts. Now standing here, the answer felt almost too monumental to grasp. He turned, startled, a spray bottle clattering to the floor. His eyes widened, mirroring her own shock. He scrambled to pick up the bottle, his cheeks flushing crimson. Miss Sterling. I didn't realize anyone was still here. He avoided her gaze, his hands fidgeting with the spray nozzle. Ellie took a step closer, her voice barely a whisper. The drawing, Tom. Lily's drawing. On your cart? He winced, his shoulders slumping. I can explain. Explain what, exactly? That you're moonlighting as our janitor? Or that you're your friend? The words felt sharper than she intended, laced with a vulnerability she couldn't quite control. He finally looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of apprehension and something else. A quiet hope? I needed the job. After Lily's mom left, things got tight, and I didn't want Lily to worry. This job, it helps. He gestured towards the drawing. Lily loves coming here. She thinks it's magical, all these empty offices and glowing screens. And she likes helping me. Ellie stared at him, at the weary lines around his eyes, at the smudge of grime on his cheek. He wasn't the confident, assured professional she'd interacted with during the day. He was just Tom, a father, doing whatever it took. And suddenly the cold, controlled facade she'd carefully constructed began to crumble. Why didn't you tell me? The question hung in the air, laced with a strange mix of accusation and disappointment. He sighed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. I was afraid. Afraid of what you'd think. Afraid I'd lose my job. That you'd see me differently. Ellie swallowed, the lump in her throat making it hard to speak. Tom, she said, her voice softer now, I already see you differently. Melting the ice. The hallway smelled faintly of stale cabbage and something vaguely floral, struggling to mask the underlying damp. Ellie clutched the paper bag tighter, the warmth of the thermos inside a small comfort against the chill radiating from the building itself. She almost turned back. Showing up here, unannounced, felt foolish. She knocked. Lightly. The door creaked open, revealing Tom, his face pale and etched with fatigue. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her. Ellie? What are you doing here? I brought soup, she said, holding up the bag. And some things for Lily. He hesitated, then stepped back, opening the door wider. The apartment was small, cluttered but clean, filled with the quiet hum of a humidifier and the faint scent of Vicks VapoRub. Lily lay on the sofa, a small, pale face peeking out from under a mountain of blankets. Ellie knelt beside the sofa. Hello, Lily, she said softly. Lily's eyes, usually bright and full of mischief, were dull with fever. Ellie gently touched her forehead. Warm, but not scalding. How are you feeling? Lily mumbled something unintelligible, then coughed, a rattling sound that made Ellie's stomach clench. Tom hovered anxiously. She's been up most of the night. I tried to get her to eat something, but... Ellie reached into the bag, pulling out a small bottle of children's cough syrup and a box of cherry-flavored lozenges. These might help, she said, handing them to Tom. Then she took out the thermos and a spoon. Let's see if she'll take a little soup. Chicken noodle. My grandmother's recipe. Lily wrinkled her nose, but Ellie managed to coax a few spoonfuls into her. Tom watched, his expression a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. Later, after Lily had drifted back to sleep and Ellie had tidied up the small kitchen, Tom leaned against the counter, watching her. I don't know what to say, he said, his voice rough. Thank you. Really. I was starting to feel like I was drowning. Ellie avoided his gaze, focusing on wiping down the already spotless counter. It's nothing, she mumbled. The one who makes chicken noodle soup and knows how to take care of a sick little girl? Ellie swallowed hard. The real her was buried deep, hidden beneath layers of armor she'd spent years constructing. But in this small, cluttered apartment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the humidifier and the gentle breathing of a sleeping child, the ice around her heart felt like it was starting to melt. Maybe, she said finally. Maybe it is. Happily ever after. The memo was taped to every cubicle wall, a garish yellow beacon of malice. Mandatory all-hands meeting, Sterling Innovations Auditorium, 10 a.m. sharp. Tom felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he peeled it off Mrs. Gable's ergonomic keyboard. He knew with a bone-deep certainty that Bob was behind it. He'd seen the smug satisfaction plastered across Bob's face all morning. The auditorium buzzed with nervous energy. Ellie stood rigidly at the podium, her usual tailored suit replaced by a softer linen dress. Tom hung back near the emergency exit, Lily clutching his hand, her small face mirroring his anxiety. Bob, standing near the front row, beamed like a predator. Thank you all for attending, Ellie began, her voice amplified, echoing slightly. I understand there have been some concerns raised regarding employee conduct and transparency. Bob coughed loudly, theatrically. Transparency, you say? How about transparency regarding questionable hiring practices, Miss Sterling? He rose, his voice dripping with venom. Perhaps you could explain the presence of a certain janitor on the payroll who seems remarkably unqualified for his position? He gestured towards Tom, a cruel smile playing on his lips. A janitor, Miss Sterling, who, I hear, is also a single father. A rather unconventional arrangement, wouldn't you say? The air thickened with palpable tension. Tom felt Lily squeeze his hand tighter, her knuckles white. He wanted to disappear, to become invisible. Ellie's expression didn't flicker. Her gaze remained fixed on Bob, unwavering. Mr. Jenkins, she said, her voice dangerously calm. I am aware of Mr. Baker's personal circumstances, and I find your insinuation not only unprofessional but deeply offensive. She paused, her eyes sweeping across the room, silencing the murmurs that had begun to ripple through the crowd. Furthermore, she continued, her voice gaining strength, I am taking a leave of absence, effective immediately. A collective gasp filled the auditorium. I will be spending the summer focusing on personal matters. She finally looked at Tom, a soft, almost imperceptible smile gracing her lips. And those matters include spending time with Mr. Baker and his daughter. The silence was deafening. Bob's triumphant smirk evaporated, replaced by bewildered rage. That summer was a kaleidoscope of sunshine, laughter, and the scent of freshly cut grass. They rented a small cottage by the lake. Tom taught Lily to skip stones. Ellie patiently helped her build sandcastles that were inevitably devoured by the tide. They swam in the cool, clear water, picnicked under the shade of weeping willows, and told stories around crackling bonfires as the stars blazed above. Tom watched Ellie transform. The rigid CEO melted away, revealing a woman who was playful, compassionate, and surprisingly vulnerable. He saw her tenderness as she read Lily bedtime stories, her quiet strength as she helped Lily overcome her fear of swimming, her genuine joy as she watched Lily chase fireflies in the twilight. He, in turn, found himself opening up, sharing his dreams and fears, his hopes and regrets. He talked about Lily's mother, about the struggles of single parenthood, about his longing for a connection, a family. And Ellie listened, truly listened, her eyes filled with understanding and empathy. One evening, as Lily slept soundly, curled up in her new room, Tom and Ellie sat on the porch, the gentle lapping of the lake against the shore the only sound. He reached out, tentatively taking her hand. Her skin was warm, soft. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "For everything." She squeezed his hand, her eyes meeting his. "Thank you, Tom," she replied, her voice equally soft. "For showing me what it means to be happy."